The Halloween season is right around the corner, and I'm not sure about you, but that is absolutely one of my favorite times of the year. And with Halloween, a big part of that is, of course, the costumes, wearing costumes, thrifting costumes, or making costumes. And maybe everybody isn't really a professional at making the best costumes. You don't really know how to do it, you don't really have the most experience, or maybe you don't have the largest budget, but you still want to make a pretty cool costume for at least the Halloween time of year. And that's where I got you. In this video, I'm going to show you how to take an incredibly cheap dollar store Halloween mask and turn it into something that looks like a real movie prop that you can use on a more professional looking costume or cosplay. And before you ask, yes, my microphone is again taped to my chest. I did not buy a new one. Like I said, this is a budget. We're doing everything cheap. Hey, what up? I'm Miles and welcome back. And if you've been around this page for quite some time, you'll know that last year we did a video pretty similar to this twice. We did it once on a cheap dollar store hockey mask to turn it into the Friday the 13th Jason mask, and also on a super cheap ghost face mask to turn it into the battle damaged weathered design from Scream 6. If you want to check out either of those videos to see those paint jobs and kind of replicate those for yourself, they're both linked down below. But in this video, we're going to do something a little bit more creative and kind of fun. About a week ago, I was doing my casual roam through a bunch of Five Belows, Dollar Trees, and Halloween stores to kind of see what I could make for videos or for prompts for Halloween time again this year. Which, unrelated, I got like 7 different Nerf gun or like water guns that I'm gonna repaint, so if you want to see those, definitely stick around. But as I was searching and shopping, I ended up finding this super cheap $1.29 children's hockey mask that looks like it's trying to be a Jason mask. And I don't mean to be rude, but I don't think it's trying hard enough. So in this video, we're going to be using some super simple and cheap methods to turn this super dinky looking plastic mask into something that looks a little bit more professional that you can use for Halloween or basically just any cosplay. I wanted to make this video for the parents who have kids who want to have a really cool costume, but maybe you don't know how to make it. I want to show you a simple and cheap way to turn something like this into something more cool. And since the mask was so cheap, I didn't just get one, I got 2. So I'm going to be doing 2 different paint jobs, and you can choose either one that you want to follow. So without further ado, let's get into it. There we go, that's the one. Okay, so as I mentioned before, in this video, I'm going to be showing you 2 different paint jobs that you can do on a mask like this. You are free to follow either one that you want. One of them is going to be a little bit more basic that pretty much anybody can do. The other one is still going to be pretty basic and easy to follow, but just have a couple different steps, and they're going to be 2 completely different effects. The first one is going to be more of a classic weathered Jason mask with just the basic blood stripes. The second one is going to be my personal way I like to do a Jason mask, where it looks like he's coming right out of the water. Super dirty, super murky, and that's how I did the other 2. But regardless of whatever design you want to do, the first couple steps are going to be the same for either mask. If you can see these masks, they already have this really shiny plastic, and our paint is not going to bite to that in any universe. So in order to get any paint or weathering to bite, we're going to have to scuff up the mask. We're going to be using a basic 320 because we don't want to scuff too deep yet. We just want to get that shine gone and have a good surface to actually start painting. The idea is just to take the basic surface area and get it scuffed up enough so your paint will actually bite. Now again, we're not like fully painting these. This is a good base color. We're going to be keeping this base color. So we don't really need to worry about scuffing the entire thing, priming it, anything fancy like that. We're using this base color to start with. We're just weathering on top of it. Now, this is a completely optional step. If you want to keep your mask physically like this, then skip ahead to the paint section. I'm going to be using a series of tools to carve different cut marks and different battle damage. Basic things like chips, cracks, scratches, fun stuff like that to give the mask a bit more character. Now, normally what I would do and what I did on my other Jason mask is I used a Dremel tool with a cutting bit to actually easily slice into that mask and save a bunch of time. But I did say that this would be an incredibly cheap and simple build. So even though I have a Dremel, and I can easily cut this with that, I'm going to try to put myself in the shoes of somebody watching this who might not have those tools, so I'm going to be using a box cutter and an Exacto knife. Super simple stuff. Now, if anyone's under the age of 18 watching this video and you want to do this, please make sure your parents are there helping you with this. Parents, be careful. Obviously, watch your kids if they're using a blade cutting a mask like this. So now, like I said, normally I use a Dremel, but this time I wanted to keep it with the very simple tools that anybody could replicate. And I ended up finding like a secret benefit of that is it's very unpredictable. I can try my best to direct where the chip or the crack will be, but a lot of it was very unpredictable, which in turn worked out for my favor because it ended up making it very natural. It ended up making it look very not planned, and that was pretty cool. So at this point in the video, depending on the paint style that you are going to be following, is where you're going to be skipping around a little bit. I'm first going to do the basic one, and then later in the video, I'm going to do the more advanced one. So we're going to start off with the basic paint scheme. For this one, we are going to be doing the basic Jason mask paint scheme. We're going to be doing the 3 triangle blood stripes and basic weathering. This requires very minimal and simple work. So the first thing we're going to do is take a lead pencil, draw out the 3 triangles, and then tape them off. Then we are going to take an acrylic paint, paint those on. After that, we're going to go into the weathering process, which I'll explain a little bit farther down the line. You could measure it if you want, but I'm honestly just going to eyeball it because it's not that big of a deal. Alright, so now we're going to move on to the paint. Again, we're using a super cheap and basic student acrylic paint, and we're using cheap dollar store brushes. The way I choose to paint is instead of brushing, I prefer to dab the paint on because I feel like it looks a little bit more natural. Alright, so we officially have the red blood stripes on there. Now, I did take a bit of an unorthodox approach, as I personally am a fan of heavy weathering. I'm a fan of battle damage, making things worn and torn. Now, if you wanted to keep the clean cut decal lines, you absolutely could have done that. Just when you took the paint off, you would have scraped off any little excess. If you saw when we took the paint off, it wasn't absolutely perfect, but that's fine. Also, I didn't think I would be a fan of this, but I kind of like the texture that paint left. I think because the paint I used was so old, it wasn't actually like liquid, it was more of a solidified paint. When I put it on there, it added some texture, so that was pretty cool. This whole project is just a bunch of happy accidents that I think are working in our favor. Anyway, now, if you wanted to leave it like this and you're satisfied with that, absolutely go for it, no one's stopping you there, but we're going to keep moving forward and weather this bad boy. We're going to do very minor weathering on this. There are several ways to do this. My personal favorite is using liquid shoe polish. However, I am out of shoe polish, so we're going to be using a mixture of, again, black acrylic paint and water. Actually, I think this is airbrush paint, but it really doesn't matter because if it's a water-based paint, acrylic-based paint, whatever, we're basically just using it for pigment. We're going to squirt a little bit of paint in there, mix it up with water so it's very, very pungent, and just like that, we're going to paint it on and dab it off with a paper towel. What this is going to do is all of the cuts and the scrapes we added earlier, this is going to basically bring those out. So now would be a good time to take some heavy grit sandpaper, add a little bit more around the mask that you really want the weathering to get into. Okay, so this is the second paint job. This is the second version. We're going to be making the mask look as if he just emerged out of Crystal Lake. For this one, we're actually going to have to go outside and use some spray paint. The method for this is going to be very simple. What you're going to need for this is a basic kind of tan spray paint. I personally choose 2X Rust-Oleum, but you can use any paint that you would like, as long as it's like a nice tan color. You're also going to need a spray bottle filled with water. So let's take it outside and paint it. Normally, to paint a mask like this with spray paint, you would simply just take a normal rattle can spray paint, spray it on and leave it, but we're actually going to be doing a bit of a different method. Like we said, we wanted to replicate him coming out of the water, so we're actually going to be spraying the mask really heavily with a water spray bottle to get the water droplets on there and then put the paint on top of that. That way when it dries, we get this really cool water damaged effect. I've done this twice in the past, and I can tell you that the more water you put on, the better it's going to look in the end. So we're going to douse the whole thing with water and very lightly spritz on some rattle can, keep hitting it with different layers. after that dries, you're going to have something that looks a little bit like this. It's going to be a very uneven and textured paint job. And that's exactly what we're going for, because not only does it give us this cool pattern to start off with, but it also adds on this decent texture to the mask that the rest of the paint will pick up on. So after you do your tan with the spray bottle, you're going to take some light sandpaper and you're just doing a light pass like this so that you can expose that texture around the entire mask. After a light sanding, you should be left with something that looks kind of like this. The reason that it worked this way is because when we sprayed on that water, what we were doing is we were applying a temporary and unstable layer to that mask so that when we sprayed the paint, it couldn't decide what it wanted to attach onto, the water or the mask. So you see some areas it attached to the mask, other areas we were able to sand off because it attached to the water, and we could just flake the paint off. We were trying to replicate water damage, and having it look super uneven like that is perfect. And of course, the only way to really replicate water damage is with water. So the next step is going to be identical to the first mask that we did, is we're going to be using the basic watered down black paint that we were using before and do the exact same thing. The only difference is on the first mask, we applied a very thin layer of it and dabbed it off immediately. This one, we're going to be layering. Again, this one's all about layers. We're going to apply a layer on, dab it off, and keep applying and keep dabbing off until we find something that we are happy with. Alright, and as we said before, we are applying layers and taking them back. So I'm going to do the same thing I did with that first mask, and I'm going to lightly scuff away some of the paint that's on top to apply a bit more of a contrast to get the darks and the lights. Okay, we are on the absolute home stretch of these. We have one final step, which again is optional, just like a lot of these steps are. Obviously, we're going for a more professional look. We're going for a more professional movie look. And we're definitely dipping farther into the horror aspect. We're making things dirty and gory, and that's awesome. But it might take a bit away from the aesthetic if you can see an eyeball through here. You don't want people to be able to see in there and look at your eye because it might take a bit away from the mask. You want to have that dead blank expression. So what we're going to do is very quickly take some see-through black fabric, hot glue it to the inside of the eye holes and the mouth plate, and we are going to call it done and dusted. And just like that, there we have it. We took an incredibly cheap $1.25, I'm sorry, I said 9 at the beginning, $1.25 mask from the dollar store and turned it into something that looks a bit more professional just to level up your costume game this year. Now, I do know that this mask was specifically a children's mask. This was a children's sized mask, and maybe that doesn't work for anybody. And if that's your concern, don't worry at all, because these exact same methods can apply to the properly adult sized Jason mask. And I've done it in a video previously. This is actually where I figured out how to do all these paint methods, was experimenting on these two to show you how to do them on this one. And at this point, I think I've repainted too many Jason masks, but it's always fun to show you guys how to do this stuff, especially this time of year. Whatever you want to do, you can apply a lot of these same methods of weathering and dry brushing and all the scuffing to a lot of different masks to get a similar effect. But I do hope that this video was either entertaining or informative for you to watch. Maybe it helped somebody make a costume this year, and if that's the case, that's awesome. I'm really glad that I could help you with that and guide you through repainting a cheap mask like this to make it look way cooler. If you do take these methods and apply them to a mask yourself and you want to show me, please feel free to tag me in your story. Be like, yo, I used this video and I repainted a mask. I'll be reposting and resharing anybody who tags me and stuff like that, because I love doing stuff with the community, and if you use my videos to repaint stuff like this, that's awesome. So thank you. Anyway, happy Halloween season, and depending on either when this video gets uploaded or when you are watching this video, if you are watching this video before October 1st, on October 1st, I'm dropping a huge project on YouTube of my secret cosplay that I've been building for the whole year. And if you're watching this after October 1st, it'll be the first link in the description for you to go watch. And again, I would really appreciate it because we put a lot of work into it. Anyway, happy spooky season. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this helped somebody. Peace and love, do good things, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace. Wrong side every time.
Yeah, Spider-Man!